Right. So, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I had my mic muted because it looks like I can sing when the mic is muted. You see me, I did the range and everything, right? Like, all that, the Mariah. So welcome to our panel. This is our final 2020 episode of our panel. We'll pick it up next year, but this is a time where we can kind of wrap up all of the beautiful conversations we've been having, really just, join community and then go into this seasonal break and then reconvene back in 2021. So welcome. We'll begin as people start to come in. Of course, this is a live broadcast, so you're always welcome to go back to our YouTube channel and listen back, take out some of those gems, refer your friends to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel. And there's our previous episodes on YouTube as well. You can always visit us on IG at OurPanel TV, and you can see some of our other face-to-face episodes when we're actually in our studio filming and such. But this is the way we do it in 2020 because of, all things COVID and distancing. But welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Crystal Redmond, and I'm joined by these two beautiful human beings, Dr. Q and Dr. Rose. Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Redmond. Hi. Hey, so Dr. Rose had this amazing idea for us to do some ugly Christmas sweaters. So, check us out. Dr. Rose, what do you got there?
I have the llama.
Hey, llama.
And the sequence.
Yeah, sequence. Dr. Q, what do you have?
Girl, I have this gingerbread stocking dress. I got it from Amazon last year. Peppermint, just all different types of festive things. And I have my daughter's headband. The Princess Santa Claus tiara.
Yes.
Very nice. What about you, Dr. Redmond? What you rocking over there?
I'm giving you very much Peggy Bundy. I little jingle bell. It was the bells that got me. It was the bells for me.
It was the bells. Yes.
It was the bells. And then, I hope everyone that's watching has also made you maybe a festive drink. Maybe, some folks like eggnog, coffees, teas, hot cocoa. We choose to have something a little stronger. So, so the name of my drink is the Ho Ho Ho. It's actually a blood orange margarita sparkling juice with some flavored liqueur, some fresh strawberries, and some vodka. So, and then we start off with a little candy cane. So that's the Ho.
That's cute.
That's cute. And mine is called Rudolph because it's just regular old red wine. So Rudolph is my drink of choice.
Okay, Rudolph. I'm gonna take you to to the hood a little bit. I got Jingle on the Rocks.
Yes.
This is white Hennessy with some cranberry juice, baby, just to have a little nightcap right here.
Yes.
Nice.
That's what I am talking about. This might be midday. And then
This is late night, baby.
That's after 12. The kids asleep. The kids and parents asleep.
Yeah, this is late night hours only.
Absolutely. So, we encourage you to get comfortable. Again, throw on your holiday gear, get on a comfy chair or something and just plug in. Again, this is a live broadcast. So what that means is we open up discussion to everyone. We don't claim to be the subject matter expert in all the things or what have you. We are just guiding the conversation here to give some facts, information, and just really navigate this communal space with us. Again, it's the holidays, so you'll hear my little one. You will see my little one run past us. We're all about community and family here. So that's just, how we hold this space. But yeah, for us, we really invite you into the conversation, allow you to ask questions in the comment section. We'll see them live. We'll bring it into the center of this conversation, and it might steer our conversation another way. If you feel as our audience that we need to kind of focus on one particular part of the conversation than another, this is your opportunity. That's why we call it this Our Panel. It's about us, right? It's about our lives, our families, our futures, our communities, us, all of us, Black, brown folks. So welcome to this space. So let's jump off. Last time on our panel, we had an episode on radical rest and leisure and the power of rest, right? As our people work to achieve freedom and liberation, as we know, it's not something that's achieved overnight. This is work that has been historically done and will continue to do. But we focused on how important rest is in our communities and our families, and not just like a one moment in time thing, right? This is a strategy for our liberation and freedom. We also brought up NAP Ministries. You can check them out on Instagram, and they have a whole theory on rest, especially in Black communities, around how we need to be able to make this a part of our lives, to dismantle the ways in which like capitalism show up and white supremacy shows up within our communities and within society, so we can actually be around to enjoy our freedom when we get there. So check them out. But that was our episode last time. So it brought us to really start thinking about, as we integrate rest into our thought, into our practice, into our work, right? How do we truly achieve health equity? How do we truly achieve, assuring that we're uplifting our communities and the power that we hold, so we can actually see a change that we want for ourselves and generations to come. So we started to think about this next episode after, the election, post-election. And we thought, wow, this is a great place for us to plug in and really discuss, where are we now? What is this Biden-Harris, presidency and VP and within the federal administration mean for our communities? It's just kind of checks and balances. What do we need to continue to do as we go on from here, as a community, as families, as individuals, and then guide that conversation into COVID? Where are we now with COVID? And what is this administration connection? What is their plan for COVID, right? And what do we need to do as communities and as families to make sure we have the power to make informative decisions about what our next step and plan is? So, and then as we get to the holidays, what that looks like for COVID, and with the elevation of media presence with still anti-Black racism, and all of the things that we're navigating, what does that look like for our families? So that's going to be our conversation today. We invite you in. So yes, please add any comments and questions into the comment section. But how does that sound to y'all?
It sounds
that works for me.
Awesome. So let's talk about this past election, right? So we have Biden and we have Harris as elects, right? Even though the orange person has not conceded yet, but so we have Biden.
It probably never will.
I don't think so. That's nothing for that person. So what does that look like? A lot of folks are on the fence of, one, we already know that, I've been very clear about my political stance as an abolitionist, and knowing that as people, we cannot put our freedom and our liberation, our justice within any government system, at all. So we don't completely rely on the government to see our people free. But we also know that we're living actively in a society that is governed. So what does that look like for our people, and what are the things we need to do to move forward in this moment?
Absolutely. So you've touched on a number of great points. I want to first just commend and give kudos to everybody that went out and voted in this past presidential election.
Yeah.
If you exercised your right to vote, you are getting one step closer to that freedom that Dr. Redmond is talking about. So shout out to everyone. I also have to give a plug, since we're located in Georgia, that there's still work to be done. So January 5th is the runoff for 2 Senate seats. This is very, very important because there are a lot of decisions that still need to be made as it relates to COVID and as it relates to our community. So the work is not over yet. Please make sure that you get out and vote. But I cannot stress enough how excited I am about the Biden and Harris administration. This means a lot for our country, I feel. And I cannot tell you everything that they have in store, but I know it's going to be better than the last 4 years for sure. And so I think for me, what I want to share with you all is just the importance of staying involved in whatever politics that you are a part of at the local, the state, and the federal level. I know we get really excited about presidential elections, but then we don't show up for local elections. And so if you really want to feel that change, you have to show up for your local elections, because those are where the real work is actually happening. And that's where you'll feel the impact of those elections the most. But I'm super excited about our new president that we'll have come January the 20th. So, just continue if you're in Georgia to fight this good fight, go out, vote in early election January the 5th. But just remember that the work is not over yet. There's still a lot to be done.
Yes, but I want to give kudos to Georgia for pretty much turning, the state blue. I'm from Florida. Typically, we thought Florida would, be blue, so I was super excited, and I was
Oh, Dr.
proud.
Q,
And
I
it's
think we're
so,
losing you.
huh?
I think it's spotty. Your reception, I think it's a little spotty.
Really? Is it spotty? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry, I was saying I'm super excited about Georgia turning blue. I know we have so much work to be done, but I was just so geeked going through. I do home visits sometimes, and going through Decatur, that city, those signs everywhere. It's an eclectic area, and just all races was like getting together. The day that they won, they were like having like safe block parties. I was like hyped. So, like Dr. India said, just get out. And we have a lot of local Georgians watching. Just get out and let's get this Senate vote. We know there's a lot to be done, but it's super cool to have a vice president that looks like us, similar.
Absolutely.
So we have to support this woman. We have to, be behind her, be behind whatever we believe in. Like we all said, is better than what we've been facing. Of course, we need to protect ourselves and protect our communities, but let's just like do our right in our own area by voting and by supporting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also think that with this federal administration, this shift, it's not even just a shift in roles, but also this it doesn't erase any of the things that are going on in the community, all the history, anything like that. And by far, I don't think that this administration is going to all of a sudden, just wave a magic wand and everything's going to be better. However, I think what it also does is allows for us to take away this almost this veil of approval of just this racism, right? Like we already know the foundation of this country and the history and all those other things. But I think that what this past administration did was give the green light for folks who are already racist, specifically navigating like anti-Black racism, and just like put them on the forefront to a place of an elevated level of harm and violence and danger for our people. So I think that what this administration eventually will do, because as you see, there's this uproar of folks that are still fighting for the current administration to be in office or what have you. So I think eventually, once things settle, this administration will hopefully get these folks like isolated back in a hole somewhere, what have you. If it was up to me, we can just put them on a whole island, or let them do their life over there or what have you. But I do think that this administration does give an element of some sense of hope as a nation, that we're willing to move forward. And also it put a mirror to our face and understanding that this nation is so divided still, right? That, with 70 million votes here and, a little bit less than 70 million there, we had an even split, and it was so close. And that tells us that, yes, we've done some work, as Dr. Q said, in Georgia specifically. We're a blue state. Like I've never thought Georgia would turn, like blue when I first moved here several years ago. But now I'm like, wow, just to see those shifts. But although we see those shifts still as a Black woman and with, my child and with my spouse, I still feel that tension, that, that thickness in the air around like our lives and in trying to navigate that. So I think there's a lot of work still to be done. As Dr. Rose and Dr. Q has said, please still plug in beyond the polls, right? Yes, we have these runoffs, get to know the folks for this runoff, the Senate runoff, get to know, make a plan to vote, etc. And then after that, get to know your representatives, your legislators, hold them accountable. They have an office. You can schedule an appointment, go up to them, send them letters, text, email, etc., and hold them accountable for the things you want to see change within your communities. And you can also do that on the federal administration level too as well. Biden here, we have to hold them accountable too as well, right? For the things that they say will do to for our communities, they need to go ahead and meet that to fruition. So have a plan. Which makes me think about this transition into where are we at with COVID? You know, this administration has discussed potentially a plan. This is the first time we've heard of a prevention plan, any type of preventative measures and public health measures, and also putting together a task force of medical and public health officials to really get us to a different place in COVID. So let's talk a little bit about that, of where we're at now, and get into kind of like this administration's plan, and then we can kind of like spice it up and speak about this new vaccine.
Yeah, so we can talk about the fact that this will be the presidential administration that actually has a plan in place. I think that in itself, I feel like our current president did not take the pandemic serious. And as a result, we've had over 250,000 people die from this pandemic in 2020 alone and counting. I know several people that have lost their battle with COVID, and I know several people still fighting with COVID today. And so I think it was really irresponsible on Trump's part to not have a plan in place. And I'm super excited that Biden does at least have something in place. Now, whether or not people are going to be comfortable and okay with wearing a mask for the first 100 days of his presidency, we'll have to see. But I think it's going to require something from the national level. It has to be a national and executive order, because as we see, governors try to come up with different preventative measures. There's so much pushback, even at the state level, the local level, et cetera. It has to come from the national level. It has to be an executive order that's placed so that all of our states can enforce whatever measure is going to be in place. And I think personally, I've shared this with you all since day one. I've worn a mask. Like, masks are effective. Masks can help slow the spread of COVID. And so, you know, if that's something that Biden wants to do, lockdown, we know, is not fun. Folks did not like being locked in the house, you know, for X amount of days, weeks. It was essential when it happened. Now we need to find a way for moving forward. So the vaccine, of course, we'll talk about that later. So I won't bring it up just yet. But I think definitely, you know, if that is the plan, to wear a mask for the first 100 days, I think that is a great first step towards us finally, you know, hopefully getting done with COVID-19.
Right. So I agree. So with the first 200 days, I think I'm in healthcare, like direct. So I'm wearing a mask all day. And like Dr. India say, the masks really do help with saving yourself and saving someone else before yourself. So I really agree with that, because obviously this governor is not in agreement with mask or any kind of shutdown. So I totally agree with that. But going into the holidays, I know me and you and Dr. Dr. Redmond discussed being safe, going around your family members. I know, Dr. India, you get tested frequently when you come in and you go. Same as me and Dr. Redmond. You have to look out for other people still. COVID is still on the rise. Your family members, I'm at risk. I mean, there's other people at risk. So just be safe going into the holidays, going around people, going back into your workspace, or just going back to your immediate family that you live with. We're going into the holidays. It's really fun, but let's continue to, you know, wash your hands and use hand sanitizer when you can't get close to hand soap and water.
Yeah, and of course, as we said at the beginning of the episode, this is the holiday season. We have our kids at home and such. So, you know, pardon my pause. You know, my little one came over, the Wi-Fi went out, and tablet was off. So it was a whole mess.
I understand that, girl.
Yes. But yeah, I definitely just echo what Dr. Rose and Dr. Q said about just making sure that we still take preventative measures in place as this new administration creates a plan for us on a federal level, and hopefully trickle down to the state level. Us within our communities, our families, we have the power to make our own personal plans and what that entails. Making sure that, as Dr. Rose and Dr. Q has said, like, continue to mask, you know, continue to make sure that you're, you know, washing your hands and, you know, sanitizing if water and soap is not available and things of that nature. But, you know, just make sure that you have a plan for how you will keep yourself and your family safe during this time. We have, before we go into the next part of the conversation, we also have a few questions. So we have someone who has mentioned, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is it Magabi X? But if I'm incorrect, I apologize. It's not my intention. So I know that voting is important, so to speak, with quotes. Can you guys discuss any collective tangible gain that Black people have attained in the past 50 years? So I can kind of address this at the forefront or what have you. So I'm not sure if you joined the conversation when I mentioned this or just joining, but so although we may have different kind of into this conversation on different like levels of our political engagement and where we're at, I personally am an abolitionist. So I don't believe that any form of the government is going to seek to get our people free completely, right? We can't lean on quote unquote like the oppressor to like seek freedom, right, and justice. However, because of the world in the U.S., how we navigate it and how we are regulated by a government system, what have you, our goal is to hold those accountable in these political positions and offices as much as our people can, staying active, being civically engaged, doing some get out the vote work, et cetera, so that way we can be engaged into that process, and also assuring that our people are elected into these positions where they can represent our communities more and show up and show out for us. So, still navigating that this is the way we do exist in, as we are on the ground organizing around recreating what that could potentially look, how we continue to build and gather community power, collective community power. So to your question, what has this done in the past 50 years for us? I'm be honest, nothing. Like I don't think to my point, the government, so to speak, is not a means of freedom. It at all in my work and perspective as a grassroots organizer and someone that's engraved their work in reproductive justice as well as public health and health equity. That is not the end all be all, because if it was, then we would have health equity. No one would be within the Medicaid gap and not having any full coverage insurance. We wouldn't be paying for student loans. Everybody will have housing, food, et cetera. We'll have all the things we need in order to thrive and survive, right? So to that point, absolutely nothing, because we're not there yet. And if there has been strides being made through regulations and policies or what have you, they're still limited. Again, we have not achieved health equity, justice, liberation, and freedom. So until we get to that point, my stance is as it stays, nothing. But that's my perspective, and I see some head nods here.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. When I read that question, I'm like, a tangible gain, I can't give you one. I think the only thing that we have gained as a people and as a community is that we now have people in office that look like us. So the hope that we can have is that when these people are voted in, that they have our best interests at heart and that they are looking out for our community. I mean, we had an African-American president. We now have our first African-American VP, female VP at that. I mean, and those are huge gains. Whether or not we'll feel the effect in our communities, I can't really say, but I really agree with Dr. Redmond. Like, we're not there yet. We're getting there slowly. I hope that we get there in my lifetime, but we really don't have anything that I would consider a tangible gain for Black people in the United States.
Right. And good question, because you specified Black people, right? We're not talking about the quote unquote American people, because that's a blanket term. And when we talk about the American people, we take the picture of what American people look like. So let's like dissect that. For Black folks who have been disenfranchised in this country for ages, right? Like, what does this administration and past administrations, what have they done for our people? And the answer is no. Like, because of that, yes, there are policies that are shifted and, in hopes of giving a little more and a little more, but we have not achieved equity. We do not have, as a people, the things we need to thrive and survive. So because we don't have that, there's no half game for me. It's either all or nothing. And we don't have it all, so we have nothing, So to Dr. Rose's point, our hope is representation, that as we continue to have people that look like us and think like us in these positions, that we continue to reshape what these systems look like and dismantle these policies and practices that have been put in place that are so engraved with white supremacy and privilege and systemic oppression and systemic racism and all these other things, that we can begin to dismantle that and rebuild systems that represent us.
I'm just gonna let them take over that question.
What'd you say, Dr. Q?
I said I'll let y'all take over that question. It was over my head, Cal, but y'all got that. They got go. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. So thank you for your question. I hope we answered it. If you have any follow-ups, let us know. We have a second question, and then after that question, we can get into more about the vaccines and Dr. Q's practice with her patients, and questions that folks have, and kind of speak about myths and such, and then creating a plan for our safety. So we have another question. Dr. Q, do you want to read that for our viewers?
Yes, I have to. I'm viewing on my phone, so
I can read it. It's okay. Okay, so Andre says, even with all of the chaos in 2020, as we are ending the year, what positives do you think came from 2020? That's a good question.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
For real, I feel like it's making people more sanitized who needed to be sanitary. No, seriously, I feel like my kids have less colds this year because my kids have to go to a school because I'm an essential worker and we have an essential business. I'm gonna knock on wood and stuff. Like, my kids have less colds this year because all the other kids are wearing masks and or they're washing their hands more often. So usually they'll be home for a few days from school. My kids haven't been sick as much this year. I'm not bragging, but I think that's a plus for a working mom.
Absolutely.
Another thing, obviously, my immediate family and me, we're still alive. We're here. We did lose a aunt early on in COVID in April. My husband's aunt, his dad's sister. So, but for the most part, my family have taken things seriously, and even we have had some gatherings and such. We're just being more careful, and which we'll probably do this for I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Just be more aware of others. I feel like I'm more appreciative of life this year, of the smaller things, like taking ownership of my own space. Because I'm more at home now, or I'm more with my children and husband. So I'm taking advantage of quality time that I took for granted when I was on the go or doing other things. So now I'm able to take care of my own space, which I've pretty much enjoyed doing this year. And I probably wouldn't have never, ever slowed down a little bit.
Yes.
So it took this for me to slow down, but I needed to slow down and reevaluate a lot of things in my life. And, some things happened to me for the good and for the bad this year. But I really think it's just made me a stronger adult and stronger parent, wife, and friend.
Absolutely. And you touched on something so important. This year made us take a pause, take a break. So we talked about radical rest in our last episode. We were forced to take radical rest for the first time. And I think when we all were able to kind of just breathe, it was whoa, this is what it's supposed to feel like. We're always on the go. We're always go, 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 go. We never take time for ourselves. And this pandemic really made us halt all activities. Stop what you're doing. COVID is here, and we had to kind of reevaluate and reassess things. And so I think one of the positives for me personally was just that opportunity to press pause, to reset, to reassess, to reevaluate. That was really, really important for me. I think the other thing this year showed me that we really have everything that we need. We're running out of toilet paper. It's come on, y'all. Why y'all buying all that toilet paper? This pandemic showed me personally that we have everything we need. We have air, we have, roof over our heads, we have family that love us. Everything else is external. We have everything that we need right at home. And the only way to really appreciate and value that was to be stuck in the house during the first half of this pandemic. And so I think that was a major positive for me from this whole chaos in 2020.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I agree. And, I know that many of our families have navigated a lot of dark times, lost a lot of close loved ones, COVID and not, including our family here. And as we, navigate that, when you go through those dark times, it also allows you to kind of assess your privileges too, as well. Privileges that we, very often grace over, the fact that, we are employed. There are a lot of people that lost their jobs and were displaced at the beginning of and throughout, 2020, and being able even to just have this conversation and, hold a platform where we can have a communal space is very powerful in itself. But, reassessing kind of, or taking an assessment and an inventory of the things that we do have and holding that and being grateful for that as we, continue to navigate this time. Plus, I got engaged during COVID, so
You sure did.
I said, okay, 2020. So there's that.
That's a big plus.
Yes.
A personal plus. So, being thankful for those things. But as a collective, as a community, I think you two hit on those very important points, like really being able to assess, some of the things that we took for granted and really centering that and family and the things that are important. And also being able, although it was forced, to take a pause and a rest and realize what are the things we have to hold and what are the things we don't need to hold, and where are we sitting within that, right? So we do have a follow-up question. So thanks for the honest analysis to my question. Will you please discuss why should Black people vote since it's not beneficial to us? So, we can all kind of hit this. I wouldn't say voting is not beneficial, right? I just don't think that in where we're at right now that we have achieved liberation and freedom and justice. But to get there, it's not just 100% relying on a government system, because you have to remember, outside of the political system, we still have organizers that are on the ground, mobilizing folks, really collectively building community power, holding our legislators accountable, building systems, or really working to strategize around building systems that we envision, right? Because we know, we discussed this in past episodes, many of the systems, if not all the systems that we navigate in our society, were rooted in racism, right? They were not built for us or for us to survive or thrive within them. So the idea is, how do we create those systems that really are created for us, right? For Black, Brown, Indigenous, young, disabled, queer, trans, like all the folks who are so far within the margins, right? For us. So with that being said, it happens on different levels. It happens within a communal level and organizing and mobilizing and doing that work. It happens also within those systems too as well, because we need people within our systems in order to help to dismantle those systems and change and re-envision those systems. And when I say systems, I'm not just talking about education system, healthcare system. We're also talking about the government system too as well, right? So representation, as we said, matters. So that's why it is important. The other thing I want to say is that, as a younger person, although I was involved in a lot of like on the ground work and things of that nature within my community, I used to say, I'm not political. I'm not really, I just want to do medicine. I very quickly learned as a young person that I do not have a privilege to separate the body from the politic, right? As a Black person in this country, it is important to know that, unfortunately, we do not have that privilege to not connect those two. And a part of our responsibility and role is where we sit in this country, if we have the privilege to vote. Because a lot of people aren't afforded that privilege within this country, to activate that in our voice in that way, but not let it be sole and only voice, that you're speaking on other elements of change, etc. And the last thing I'll say on this, so to speak, is that and then also to realize that we don't shame people for their decision not to vote. That we have, as Black folks, a history in this country, right? There is a lot of trauma there. There's just a lot of distrust in systems and etc. So if someone makes a plan and that plan involves not voting, but maybe to engage their efforts on a grassroots level and do these other things, that should not be shamed too as well. It takes all of us to collectively build and shift things. So those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I agree with what Dr. Redmond said. We're not saying that it's not beneficial to us. It is definitely beneficial. I think the most important thing is just having that voice and having that seat at the table. So until we get someone that can advocate on our behalf, things won't change for our communities and for us in particular. And so we definitely I'm pro voting. I think voting is super important. It's something that I've always done since I was legally able to do. And so I'm not saying not to vote, like definitely vote, because eventually it will impact the people that need it the most. And so I think, getting people into these positions of power will really help us see the change that we're hoping for.
I'm a pro voter. My grandfather, I took them to the polls. I took my grandmother to the polls, and I just think about so many people who died for us to vote. So I'm always going to represent for like my ancestors, for my immediate family. So if you decide not to vote, that's on you. There's no judgment, but I'm going to vote for the reason why I saw my parents, my grandfather, my grandmother, and so many others die for this right. So representation matters. And also, I want a better future for my daughters and for my grandchildren. So I was going to continue to vote and try to find more people that look like me, get them in office. And we don't know what can happen. So I'm just going to keep voting.
Are you muted, Dr. Redmond?
I sure was. And I said, awesome, I concur. And I see also that the same viewer has another question. We're just going to answer the question before yours and then get to yours. So we will definitely get to your last or the last question you asked on that matter. And also to your point, your question speaks about our last kind of like segment of the episode today around the vaccine. So we will hold on that question if we can. And then we have Shayna, who says, great job, ladies. For those who are struggling during this time, what encouragement would you offer?
That's a great question, Shauna. So for me personally, what I would recommend is know that you're not in this alone. And so I think one thing that this pandemic did do was isolate a lot of people. And we need to find healthy ways to still be able to get that social interaction, because social interaction is so critical. Like, if you want to be on this earth by yourself, you need to go like stay on an island somewhere. It's almost like impossible to do life alone. And so I can understand how this could be a difficult time and how it could be a struggle. I think it's really important to try to build in ways, whether it's through Zoom or even going to a local park and you and your friend being 6 feet apart, and still having a picnic. You can still be like, hey girl, how was your week? Like, still have that interaction. I think social interaction is the key for people that are struggling during this time. And also, find things that you love to do. This is the opportunity to pick up things that you might have, put to the side because you've been busy with work. You may want to write a book. You may want to start a business. I think tapping into things that make you happy could also help with those that are struggling during this time.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree. I can say personally, me, working out helps me release good endorphins. So like physical activity, whether it's like a morning stretch, some meditation. I know it's getting cold, so maybe you could walk outside if you're not going to the gym. But some sort of physical activity does release good endorphins. Stretching helps with stretching, quick stretches. I call it micro stretching. 2 to 3 minutes a day helps with stress relief and also muscle tension. And like Dr. India say, like I'm finding more things that I enjoyed before when I was so busy that I could do now. So I set aside time. I've never watched TV in 2019. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. We're just not a TV family because we're so busy. So this year I'm watching more TV, and I know it sounds crazy, but I'm doing stuff that I used to love. So I write down stuff that I used to like to do, like maybe pre-kids, and I'm actually picking things back up. So maybe try to pick up a good habit and maybe try to drop some of the bad ones that you was trying to release before. You have the time, you have more time. So just try to do the pros and the cons, try to balance yourself out, find a support. You have support here. You could message us and possibly we could brainstorm, or we could be new friends. We could chat.
Yeah, and I would have to agree. I think that as we think about encouragement, a piece of this work here is to build community. So we have a space where we can, be here for not just us, but like all the folks that are viewing or what have you, and have a platform for us to continue to connect. As Dr. Rose said, like find ways of connecting. I think to your point, Shayna, Shayna, I think, Shayna, and to Andre, who had asked a question before around some positives from this year, and maybe this can encourage us collectively, is that one positive amongst a few that I've identified this year is that we have been able to, in the midst of the stink of it all, right, this reckoning of it all, to come together as a community and really show our power. Like really show our power, show up, show out, have collective actions in the thousands, right? Like on the streets across almost every major city of this country and internationally too as well. That was the biggest civic action of our times, period. You know, so to see that, to turn on the TV and to be able to see that and have my little one see that and know that we as a people are showing up and showing out. Some of us, we spoke about this in past episodes around what our roles can be within the movement, right? Some of us may not have been able to be on the front lines face to face because of just the different things. You know, maybe we are just not physically able to, or, you know, don't have that capacity to do so. But there were other folks like fundraising to make sure these folks had the equipment they needed. They had PPE, that they had water, they had supplies, they had bailout funds, they had lawyers, you know, legal aid accessible to them to help bail them out. Like, you know, there are folks on different levels that were really able to navigate such a grandiose action. And I'm just, you know, that's just something that I'm thankful for, that I was able to see that and also be a part of that. And that my child was able to see that and know that we are this country is shifting, right? Well, we're not there yet, as we said before, but we are, you know, we have seen this, this increased presence of this, you know, global action in the midst of COVID too. So it's not even just this pandemic of anti-Black racism, this uproar of anti-Black racism, but also this public health pandemic too as well of COVID. And to have those things going on, and we're still able to plug in and engage in civic unrest and action and such was so powerful. So that definitely gives hope for us. And as we get, oh, thank you very much. I've seen some comments there. Thank you so much. So as we get some other questions around this vaccine, let's, you know, this was on our slate for today to really discuss not just COVID and where we're at and how to have a plan, but also to discuss this, you know, new news of this vaccine and where we're at. And, you know, to a point that was mentioned in the comments, I'm just going to say, we have said, if you've tuned into our panel before, we are very honest about our history in this country as Black folks, right? We talk about, even as public health and medical providers on this panel, we know that even the systems we work in are so rooted in racism, and that we actively show up and show out to really integrate our political power and the, you know, the power that we hold within these systems to constantly challenge those things and create new spaces for us to practice, right? We all, you know, have separate buckets of work and such, but we also own different pieces of our practices that are centering in our communities and our work. So with that being said, with, you know, being in public health, we know our history with forced sterilization, eugenics, population control, you know, the Tuskegee experimentation, and, you know, till this day, let's not think about, oh, you know, this happened years ago. No, till this day, within even prison systems or even modern forms of sterilization within the medical system and things of that nature. So we're not, you know, it's not that we are coming in blinded and saying like, yes, let's just talk about this vaccine. No, we hold that in this conversation. And we know that that's why so many of our people are, one, very clear about we ain't getting the vaccine. You know, that's what people are saying. Like, we don't know. We don't trust you. Hit me on the third round. You know, like we just, a lot of folks are not with it. And we just wanted to make sure that as we are having this conversation, let's discuss the myths, the facts, where we're at, and just have a dialogue about it, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk about what we know. So we now have a vaccine. It was produced by Pfizer, and the Food and Drug Administration gave emergency use authorization for the use of this COVID-19 vaccine. It's the first of many. We know that several are still doing clinical trials. They have not yet received that approval, but the first one did receive approval. One thing I think that's really important is that the general public will not yet get it. It's for frontline workers, healthcare professionals, and residents in long-term facilities. So it's not something that everyone's able to get right away because the supply is so limited. I think it's really important for folks to also understand that the Pfizer vaccine is a 2-dose vaccine. You get the first dose and then you get the second one 21 days later. So having to come 21 days after you got the first one, it does have some side effects. They said similar to the flu. So you may be a little bit groggy after getting it. And then you have to wait 7 to 14 days after that second dose in order to be fully vaccinated and protected against COVID-19. And so when you're thinking about whether or not this is even something that you want to do, you really need to think about all of the steps. It's more than just a one and done type of thing. You can't get one shot and then move on. You have to get the first, then 21 days later come back. So it's something that me personally, and I'm in public health, I love all things public health. I'm not running to the front to get it because of the history of how our healthcare system has treated Black people in general, how our public health system also with the Tuskegee experiment. I'm not going to be that guinea pig. And so, right now, for folks that want to get it, great. I'm going to continue to do the preventative measures that I've been doing the last 9 months, which is wearing my mask, staying 6 feet apart, and then keeping my butt at home. So that's what I'm going to do personally. But the vaccine is a really hot and popular topic right now. And whether or not you or your family is going to get it is going to be totally up to you and your household.
Just keep look at evidence-based stuff. Is still stuff being researched, and obviously people are just starting to administer it or get it. As far as I have a private practice, so I'm going to remain screening my patients. Good thing is I work with a lot of post-operative patients, so they had to have a COVID test before they went into surgery. So luckily I've kept the exposure to here at Body Goes Physical Therapy and Wellness. Personally, like Dr. India, I don't want to. I am a frontline worker, and I do go into an assisted living facility. So if they stop me if I need to do a vaccination, I probably won't see that woman for now. And just let their in-house therapy do it, because I don't know yet. And when I decide to make a decision, or if something comes up later, I'll revisit it once I know more, because I'm all about research and reason. So you guys just have to not read the National Enquirer and look at like certain kind of news outlets. I do have crazy questions. So just talk to public health doctors, talk to a medical doctor, contact the CDC, read realistic websites, stop sharing fake stuff, guys. It's not even cool at all, and stop reading it, because this is serious. This is a vaccination, but you don't want to start spreading rumors. I've heard a lot of rumors for different patients, and it's getting out of control already. So those are my 2 cents.
And we're laughing because we heard some of those rumors. It's like, oh goodness. So to y'all's point, we have to have a plan, right? And no one, I personally will not say get this vaccine or not, because that's I believe in self-determination and bodily autonomy. So you have to have a plan for what you believe based on what Dr. Q said, research, and you said in reason. What research are you conducting as well? Before these calls, we usually have our own side conversations and talks, and something that Dr. Rosa said is like, information can save a life, and can save lives. So the power of information, don't worry about that. Accurate and valid information, right? And from multiple sources. Even as researchers, when we do our research, we don't rely on one source. We look at multiple information, and then we compare the data and make sure that we see a what am I thinking of? A trend, right, in that information and data that shows us, okay, all these facts and information and data shift to maybe this decision here. But it's a decision that you're going to have to make based on what you feel is best for your family and your community, etc. But what we will say is you have to have a plan for prevention and treatment, right? You have to have a plan. And if vaccinations and receiving a vaccine is a part of your plan, then that's your plan. If it is not a part of your plan, then you need to actively have a plan of like, what exactly is the plan, right? As Dr. Rosa said, our plan, we've said it here, is just to, make sure that we are being as safe as possible, right, in the world of COVID, and, making sure that we're washing our hands and sanitizing, wearing our masks when we have to go out, etc., right, and staying distance. So is that a part of your plan? And of course, understanding the history in this country and wanting to make sure we have accurate information as well as long-term data. Many of the medicines and vaccines that are out now have been tested through trials and have long-term results to see if there are any adverse effects. I'm not even quite sure if this medicine has been tested and ensures that if you are a pregnant person, if you can take, the vaccine, or if you do decide to get pregnant after receiving the vaccine, like what we don't know at this point what those, potential effects could be or outcomes could be. So research it as much as you can and make a decision that you're comfortable with.
Dr. Rose, can you go over, like, I know some people is asking statistics. Is it like, what's the survival rate and all the other?
Yeah, so the only data that CDC has released is that the Pfizer vaccine is 95% effective. So that is a very high effective rate. But I think what Dr. Redmond was touching on, we don't know the long-term effects. And we don't know them because they created this vaccine so quickly. And so usually in clinical trials, you have 3 to 5 years of testing and following up and checking on the individuals that were a part of that clinical trial to really see like what's happening at the site of injection, what's happening internally. And so I personally don't think that we've had enough time to really understand the long-term effects and the long-term impact that it can have, like you said, for women that may want to bear children in the future. We don't know what this vaccine can do to those individuals because we haven't had enough time to study it. And so to answer the question, would I recommend Black people take the vaccine? No, India Dorothy Rose, would not recommend Black people get the vaccine. Would I recommend my spouse or my kids? I don't have a spouse or kids yet, but I would not recommend that my spouse or my kids get the vaccine. And that's just me being real. We don't know enough about it. And I'm not an early adopter. I wait to see how much research, I wait to see the long-term impact, because that's going to be what matters the most. We don't want to all run out and get a vaccine and then 3 years later we're blind. That's what Tuskegee was. It was the study of untreated syphilis in Black men. And so the untreated, that's the part, like not treating it. And so we don't know what the long-term effects of the Pfizer vaccine is. So I personally would not recommend anyone that I love go get it right away. Let's see what happens. Like Dr. Redmond said, we'll go in the third round.
Right.
Y'all can go in round 1, round 2. We'll come in on the third round.
Right. Come back at me. Let me know what's going on. And then also, let's be real, as we were in medical school and going through our studies, I'm not going to try to date myself, but H1N1 would hit, and Obama was in office. And I literally, as a public health student, I had a block on my registration and my financial aid and scholarships in order to register to the next semester unless I got a vaccine. So, there are certain stipulations, even though it might not be a federal stipulation and mandate for us to take the vaccine as a society, there are institutions that will require you in order to stay employed.
Yes.
Students,
especially in those some of those hospitals and nursing homes with the H1N1, they made us.
Right. And it's not like, what we hear is that frontline workers, older folks over 60 or 65 will receive it, in waves, but there's no discussion around how it's going to be rolled out, meaning if it's going to be mandated. Are you going to hold funding and housing and scholarships and school and all that at bay until people comply with this beyond or, against their own personal decision and informational research around this? And then folks are going to, if that's the case, are going to be left to choose between, their livelihood at times and receiving this vaccine that they are not quite sure what the effects are. And that is going to be the reality of, this next 6 months or so. I have family that are, nurse practitioners and physicians and such that are their hospitals have stopped all vacation and sick time tell, okay, my kids, you're talking about some water. It's 6 times for the next 5 to 6 months because they just received these vaccines or they're planning to receive these vaccines and they have to start rolling them out. They have a goal of 300 people in an 8-hour period until they hit a certain amount of people. And I get the data wanting to assure that folks have access to it, but also we have to make sure we know exactly what we're doing before we commit to this piece of the plan, right?
Absolutely. And to your point about credible sources, I serve as a consultant for CDC. So CDC have a lot of great information about the vaccine. They have a link to Pfizer so that you can read more. But it's really, really important for folks to educate yourself on this vaccine before you decide to get it or before you even make a plan for you and your family to get it. But I highly recommend that you go to CDC's website. They have a lot of great information there about the vaccination.
Definitely CDC.
Awesome. So I think that answers to the last question we had so far around credible sources. And if you are in need of other sources, this is just a conversation we hold down every few weeks or every month or so. Now that we're, COVID, it was recorded prior to this in a studio, but we also are present at OurPanel TV on Instagram. You can DM us, you can tag us, you can, definitely connect with us there. We also have our own personal, IG channels if you want to connect with us there. We're very accessible. We're in service to community. So we're here to make sure that we see our people healthy and free. So just please connect with us after this if you're not able to answer. We're not able to get to all your questions here. Oh, thank you. So we have you sisters have presented a realistic perspective on the vaccine, and I appreciate your honesty. We're going to give it to you.
As real.
Yeah, right. As we said, we want to see our people healthy and free and liberated and, just have all the things we need. And we can't do that authentically without truly, having these real conversations. So that's why we created this space.
And one thing I always say is that knowledge isn't power. It's what you do with it that's powerful. So that's what OurPanel is all about. What good is the information we have if we don't share it with our community? And so I hope that this was helpful for folks. We definitely look forward to continuing the conversation for sure.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Hey, any closing thoughts, Dr. Q?
Guys, be safe over the holidays. I really enjoy OurPanel TV. I enjoyed the questions tonight because it was very engaging. So thanks for all those questions. Stay encouraged, stay safe, and stay happy.
Thank you. Oh, we have a last comment. Y'all are incredible. Thank you, and can't wait to hug you. Virtual hugs. I'm trying to stay still because my sweater makes noise. So I'm
so cute.
like, oh.
So cute.
Awesome. Well, and Dr. Rose, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback off what Dr. Q said. The holiday season is not a time to let up. Several people that we're seeing die now is a result of them gathering at Thanksgiving time. And so I know that we want to be around our families and our loved ones, but please do continue to be safe. Please wear your mask when you can. Please social distance. And one thing that I recommend doing is just getting tested frequently. There are free or low-cost testing sites all over this nation. And so if you need to be plugged into those resources, please let us know so that when you're going to these family gatherings, you know that you are not the carrier of COVID coming into these situations. And so just continue to be safe. Happy holidays to everyone. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you to Dr. Rose and Dr. Q for holding down this space. This video is up. It will be on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Look at our other videos and episodes too as well. Visit us at OurPanel TV on IG. Please stay as safe as can be. Remember, just create a plan. If you take away anything, I think that what we try to instill here is that we have bodily autonomy and self-determination to make these decisions. Do your research, create a plan to keeping yourself and your family safe. So enjoy your hopefully time off this season. If not time off, hopefully enjoying time with your family, loved ones, and community. So take care until next time. Bye-bye. 2021. Bye.